Okay, so in this video, I'm going to be talking about love bombing, and I'm probably going to go over the 5 minute mark on this one because there's a heck of a lot to explain. So, love bombing is definitely something that's common with people with narcissistic personality disorder, and I'm going to kind of the reasons why. But my mother experienced it. We, as his children, also experienced it, which is not that common, but I'll try and explain that. But also as well, we witnessed it with his new family, with the ex-secretary as well. So I just want to explain. So love bombing is a kind of a tactic to shower the, call it, victim with admiration, gifts, generosity, and kind of idealize them in a sort of way. And one of the reasons to do that is obviously, well, I've spoke about kind of many times before, that my father seems to have kind of a very fragile ego, and so he kind of craves this kind of admiration as a result of generosity, and likes the attention. So that's because as a result of the kind of love bombing, especially kind of monetary presence and his generosity, who get a lot of admiration for it. But also as well, kind of love bombing, the reason why it's so kind of quick and so intense is so the victim doesn't spot the red flags. So for example, things like kind of the emotional and psychological tactics to kind of devalue, and that's the kind of next stage, is the devaluation stage, where they kind of there's put downs, there's stonewalling, there's lots of avoidance of accountability, gaslighting, deflection, blame, silent treatment, making the victim feel like they've done wrong. Now, obviously, I've spoke about many times before, we've come across this kind of devaluing stage, and also, generosity reminders as well, as a result of his unasked for generosity during the kind of the initial stage. But then it goes to the last stage, where they either discard or they try to hoover their victims back in, and then it goes around in circles. So yeah, I mean, we've captured hoovering. So when all the kind of the devaluing, all these kind of mind games didn't work, he then turned to hoovering, by asking my mother if she'd do anything to have him back. And also as well, in the 1984 court case, my father didn't want to go through with it, and absolutely begged my mother not to go through with it, because it would have been so damaging. But then obviously he then went back to kind of eventually back to his kind of his normal scheming, violent, but also kind of raging mode. So yeah, it kind of like starts again. But yeah, then obviously the final stage is if he's not getting the admiration that he craves, then he discards them. So we were his previous narcissistic supply, and now he's got his new narcissistic supply, who he's able to love bomb and idolize and be really generous to. And yeah, my mother experienced that he, in that year, he had spent over £26,000 on the affair. Now, people who probably know my father probably think he was really wealthy, but actually £26,000 is and was a lot of money to him. This wasn't like chump change to him. He wasn't as wealthy person as he made himself out to be, which again, it's kind of this is what many people I speak to are quite surprised about. And so yeah, over this £26,000 on the affair wasn't just kind of trying to help this person out, the ex-secretary. It was really kind of luxurious gifts. So before her husband died at Christmas, he bought her a necklace, which we saw paraded on the Facebook. It was part of the Offspring range from a brand called George Jensen. Now, if you've seen the DNA paternity test video, there's obviously some linkages there, and I'm not really going to make assumptions because obviously he'll go out his way to prove me wrong. So yeah, anyway, the other thing that was really unusual was how he had roped in her daughter to buy in nice stuff. So he admitted that he sent money to the ex-secretary's daughter, allegedly to buy her mother nice things, which I don't know if she's watching this. If the daughter's watching this, then I wonder if there's any kind of truth to that, and obviously I'll put the message on here. But otherwise, if that is true, then it just probably means that the daughter was complicit in the whole affair. So that was interesting. So yeah, it'll be interesting to know because they've obviously experienced this intense idealization stage, whether or not they've then experienced the kind of devaluation stage in the mind games. Because we've caught so many instances of this devaluation stage. Now, I just want to add one really important bit, and it's the kind of what we'll probably find out is that the generosity has continued since we put up the safety barriers high up against my father, and we've kind of seen some evidence of that. But I think what my message to the family, what they need to understand is what they're probably not seeing there is genuine kindness. It's strategic generosity. So when my father suddenly becomes overly generous with like money, gifts, favors, it's not because anyone asked, but it's because he knows that we hold some very uncomfortable truths about him. So yeah, again, this is kind of potentially kind of continued love bombing behavior, but to try and cover up his lies. I think probably what we'll probably find out is he's probably been overly generous, taking people out for meals, probably even holidays, to thank people for being there in a world where he's the victim. But by giving excessively, he creates three pressures all at once. So the first being a kind of a feeling of indebtedness. So if people accept the gifts, they're expected to kind of soften, stay quiet, or kind of be grateful, as we experience quite a bit. And then second, it's there to create a bit of kind of confusion. So it becomes somebody who's kind of a victim of kind of love bombing. It kind of becomes harder for them to then challenge the person who's being overly generous, because it means that they might not continue to be generous. But in third, it kind of creates kind of this plausible deniability. So if he's confronted later, he can then say, well, why would I do that? Look how much I've done for you. So yeah, it isn't about kind of genuine repair to the family. It's all about, because genuine repair to them is kind of taking accountability. It includes kind of listening, acknowledging, and change behavior. But yeah, potentially it's kind of continued love bombing is all about kind of personal image management. It's not about love. It's just about control, basically. And he's, as we found out, he's a master of that. But yeah, I think the most important detail is, as we've experienced, the generosity stops the moment it can no longer protect him. So yeah, I think yeah, we are probably going to find out that the kind of love bombing continued, but it's just not sustainable. He's only got so much kind of money in the world, and obviously he kind of feeds off that kind of generosity. So yeah, it's all about trying to buy the individual. Yeah, I think that's all I really have to say on it.